David Turner retired 14 months ago. He's 67, spent 38 years working as a project manager for a mid-sized manufacturing company outside Columbus, Ohio. He owns his home outright. He has $91,000 in a rollover IRA, and every month, a Social Security deposit of $1,960 hits his checking account like clockwork. From the outside, from his neighbor's driveway, from his kid's perspective, from any reasonable vantage point, David looks like a man who made it. 3 streets over, Carol Simmons is 58. Same suburb, similar career arc, similar income history. She spent her 30s raising 2 kids, paused her 401k contributions for 6 years when money got tight, and is now trying to rebuild. Last month, she read something that stopped her cold. Something about 2033, about a trust fund running dry, about a 23% cut. She forwarded the article to her financial advisor and typed 3 words. Is this real? It is. Here's what connects David and Carol, and probably connects to you. Both of them built their retirement plan around 2 things: whatever they managed to save personally and Social Security as the backstop, the safety net beneath the tightrope, the second beam holding up the house. The problem is that one of those beams has a crack in it that most people, including David, don't know about yet. This video is about both beams, what the savings data actually shows, why the Social Security math is about to change in a way that no one in Washington wants to discuss plainly, and what the gap between David's situation and Carol's situation means for anyone still in a position to do something about it. If you're someone who has been quietly counting on Social Security to make up the difference between what you've saved and what you actually need, subscribe and like this video. It will help more than you think. Here's the version of retirement most people carry around in their heads. You work for 35 or 40 years. You accumulate some savings. Then you retire and Social Security arrives every month like a reliable paycheck. Not enough to live lavishly, but enough to cover the basics while you draw down what you saved. The 2 things work together. One beam, then the other. The house stands. That version isn't wrong exactly. It's just built on assumptions that have already started to fail, and one that's scheduled to fail on a specific date. The first assumption is that the savings side of the equation is solid enough to matter. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey of consumer finances, the median retirement savings across all American households is $87,000. Not the average, the median, the middle of the distribution. Half of all households have less than that. When you look specifically at households where the head is between 55 and 64, meaning people in their final working decade, the median is $185,000. That sounds more reassuring until you do the math. Pull 4% annually from $185,000 and you get $7,400 per year. That's $616 a month. Not a second income, closer to a car payment plus groceries. The second assumption, that Social Security is a stable, permanent backstop, is where most people's thinking goes completely unchallenged. They've heard the warnings before. Social Security won't be around when you retire. Most people have filed that in the same mental drawer as doomsday predictions. Exaggerated, political noise. It won't really happen. But here's the thing. It's not a prediction anymore. It has a date. The Social Security Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, the actual reserve that supplements payroll tax revenue to pay current retirees, is projected to be depleted by 2033. When that happens, Social Security doesn't disappear. What happens instead is that benefits get cut to whatever can be funded by incoming payroll taxes alone. The current estimate is a 23% reduction, across the board, for everyone receiving benefits at that time. The people already retired, the people retiring that year, all of them. Most people who understand this fact assume Congress will fix it before 2033. Congress has been aware of this trajectory for over a decade. They haven't fixed it. 8 years is not a long time when you're 58 years old and trying to build a retirement plan. This is the real problem. Not that the numbers are hard, not that saving is complicated. The real problem is that most people are building a two-beam house with one beam that's weaker than they know and another beam that's actively developing a fracture. And the dominant mental posture is, someone else will figure it out. They won't. Or at least, you shouldn't count on it. Let me put some flesh on the savings side first, because the numbers alone don't fully communicate what's happening. David Turner, who retired last year with $91,000 in savings and his $1,960 monthly Social Security check, is not an outlier. He's slightly above median. His situation looks like this. Using a conservative 4% withdrawal rate, his IRA generates about $303 a month. Add Social Security, and his total monthly income is $2,263. His fixed expenses, a modest property tax on the home he owns, Medicare Part B premiums of $185, supplemental coverage for another $140, prescriptions, utilities, food, gas, car insurance, run him roughly $2,100 a month when nothing goes wrong. He has about $160 left over. That's his entire margin. That's the buffer between his stable retirement and the first unexpected expense. When the water heater in his basement failed last October, the replacement cost $1,400. He put it on a credit card. He's been paying it down slowly since, which has compressed his margin to nearly zero. He doesn't talk about this with his kids. From their driveway, he still looks like a man who made it. Now here's where the first beam shows its weakness, and why the $87,000 median figure understates how bad the situation actually is. The median is only measuring people who have something saved. Roughly 1 in 4 Americans arrives at retirement with zero in dedicated retirement accounts. Nothing in a 401k. Nothing in an IRA. Nothing earmarked specifically for the retirement years. For these people, Social Security isn't the backstop. Social Security is the entire plan. That $1,960 monthly average check is every dollar they have. There are 4 specific places where the savings side breaks down for most people, and they tend to compound on each other in ways that are hard to see until it's too late. The first is simply starting too late. The most powerful force in building retirement wealth is time, not contribution size, not investment selection, not market timing. Time. Someone who puts $250 a month into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund starting at 25 will have more at 65 than someone who puts $500 a month starting at 45. The 25-year-old invested less total money and ends up with more. That feels wrong until you understand that the first decade of compounding does more work than the last 2 decades combined. Most people don't take this seriously until their late 30s. By then, the cheapest decade of growth is already gone. The second place things break is the pause. Carol Simmons paused her 401k contributions for 6 years in her early 30s. She doesn't think of this as a catastrophic decision. The kids needed things. The mortgage was new. It was supposed to be temporary. But 6 years of missed contributions between ages 31 and 37 isn't just 6 years of missing deposits. It's 6 years of missing compounding on those deposits, at the age when that compounding was worth the most. Carol estimated recently that the 6-year pause cost her somewhere between $180,000 and $220,000 in retirement wealth. Not in contributions, in the growth she would have had. The pause felt invisible. The cost was not. The third place is what happens when people change jobs, and roughly 40% of workers cash out their 401k balance rather than rolling it over. A 30-year-old who cashes out $18,000 gets maybe $12,000 after the 10% penalty and income taxes. That $12,000 feels real. The $190,000 that $18,000 would have grown to over 35 years at 7% average returns does not feel real. It's abstract. It lives in a future that doesn't yet exist. So people take the $12,000. Hundreds of billions of dollars in future retirement wealth get liquidated this way every year. Not through malice, through the very human tendency to value what's in front of you over what you can't see. The fourth place is the assumption that there's time to catch up. At 45, most people know they're behind. But the math of catching up is brutal in a way that doesn't register until you actually run it. Someone who wants to retire at 65 with $500,000 and start saving at 25 needs to put away roughly $285 a month at 8% average annual returns. That same person starting at 45 needs to save $1,200 a month to hit the same number. Most 45-year-olds with a mortgage, kids in school or college, and a decade of underfunded retirement accounts cannot suddenly redirect $1,200 a month. Their expenses have locked in around them. The window to catch up comfortably has already closed. What remains is harder and less forgiving. There is a fifth factor that doesn't fit neatly into the behavioral failures, but it belongs in this conversation: healthcare. A couple retiring today at 65 should expect to spend approximately $330,000 on healthcare costs over the course of retirement, according to Fidelity's most recent estimate. That number covers Medicare premiums, supplemental coverage, dental care that Medicare doesn't touch, vision, hearing aids, and out-of-pocket costs from the inevitable medical events that accumulate across 20 or 25 years. For someone like David, with $91,000 in total savings, healthcare costs alone could consume his entire IRA within a decade, before he's even in his late 70s, when care needs typically increase rather than decrease. Most retirement planning conversations treat healthcare as a line item. It's actually a structural threat. A person can do everything right on the savings side and still find that the largest expense category in retirement was the one they underestimated the most. This is the savings beam. Already cracked for most people. Now the Social Security beam. The Social Security Trust Fund has been running a deficit since 2021. Payroll taxes bring in X. Benefits cost more than X. The difference is covered by drawing down the reserve. The reserve runs out in 2033. After that, the program pays out only what comes in from payroll taxes. The Social Security trustees themselves have published this projection. It's not a fringe analysis. When the 23% cut hits, David Turner's $1,960 monthly check becomes roughly $1,509. That's $451 less per month. For someone with $160 of margin, that's not a reduction. That's a reckoning. His budget, which barely works today, stops working entirely. He would need to spend down his IRA faster, which means it runs out sooner, which means he relies on Social Security even more. At the moment, Social Security has been cut. This is the double punch. And it lands hardest on the people who save the least, because they're the ones who depend on Social Security the most to bridge the gap. Carol is 58. She has 8 years before 2033. She knows the beam is cracking. David is 67. He retired into a system he thought was stable. He doesn't know yet. More than 4 million Americans are turning 65 every single year right now. The peak years of retirement, 2024 through 2027, are putting more people on Social Security rolls than any period in American history. At the exact moment, the reserves are draining. This isn't bad luck. It's a structural collision that has been visible on paper for years and addressed by no one. Here's where most people's thinking breaks. They hear 2033, 23% cut, and they wait. They assume it will be fixed. They assume that because Social Security has always been there, it will always be adjusted before the breaking point. They have a mental model of government as a slow but ultimately functional mechanism that corrects before collapse. That assumption has not been tested against a trust fund depletion before. We've never actually hit the wall. Run the math on a median retiree post-2033, and the picture is stark. Total monthly income, $87,000 in savings, generating $290 a month at 4% withdrawal, plus a Social Security check of $1,509 after the 23% cut. That's $1,799 a month, $21,588 a year. The federal poverty line for a single person is $15,060. The median retiree clears poverty, but not by much. They're one bad year away from it, one health event, one car failure, 1 month where 3 bills land at the same time. This isn't a failure of effort. David worked for 38 years. He showed up. He paid in. The failure is structural, and it's been building in plain sight for a generation. But there's a specific psychological trap that makes the structural problem worse. It's the belief that saving a little is close enough to saving enough. Someone who saves 5% of their income feels like they're responsible. They're not blowing money. They're not reckless. They have a 401k. Compared to the people saving nothing, they feel ahead. And compared to the median, maybe they are slightly ahead. But ahead of $87,000 and prepared for retirement are not the same thing. The gap between those two definitions is where most people live, comfortably, for decades, until they can't. Carol saw this. She looked at her 401k balance at 57, $68,000, not terrible given the 6-year gap, but nowhere near where it needed to be. And she felt the distance between where she was and where she needed to go as something physical. Like standing at the base of a mountain, she hadn't realized she was supposed to be climbing. The path had been there the whole time. She just hadn't looked up. What she did next is what matters. I've been investing my own money for over 15 years. I've watched the compounding math work, and I've watched the cash-out mistake happen to people close to me. What follows isn't theoretical. It's the specific framework that separates people who retire on their own terms from people who retire into David's situation, margin-free and unaware that the margin is about to get smaller. The first piece is treating your savings rate as the number that matters most, not your investment returns, not your account balance today, your savings rate, the percentage of every paycheck that goes into a tax-advantaged account before you make any other decision. If you're in your 20s or early 30s, the target is 15%, including any employer match. Get there by starting at whatever you can manage and raising it by 1 percentage point every year. The employer match is free money with a guaranteed 100% return on the matched portion. Capture every dollar of it before doing anything else. Carol rebuilt from $68,000 starting at 58 by pushing her savings rate to 22% of income for the last 6 years of her working life. She won't retire with $500,000, but she'll retire with something meaningful rather than something fragile. The second piece is never treating a job change as a cash event. When you leave a job and have a 401k balance, roll it into an IRA or your new employer's plan. The paperwork takes an afternoon. The cost of cashing it out instead is measured in 6 figures over a working lifetime. If you've already done this, the math doesn't run backwards, but the behavior can change today. Whatever is in your accounts right now stays there, grows, and compounds. That's the rule. The third piece, and this is the one most people ignore because it involves planning around something they'd rather not think about, is building your retirement math without assuming Social Security will arrive at its current level. Use today's benefit estimate as a floor, not a ceiling. If Congress acts before 2033 and preserves full benefits, that's a bonus. If they don't, you've built around the reality rather than the hope. Delaying Social Security until 70 is one of the most powerful adjustments available to people who are still working. Every year you delay past full retirement age increases your benefit by roughly 8%. A $1,960 benefit at 67 becomes approximately $2,600 at 70. That's $640 more per month, every month, for life. For someone with limited personal savings, that difference matters more than almost anything else in the financial plan. It's the single highest guaranteed return available to most Americans, and most Americans leave it on the table by claiming early because they're worried the program won't be around. The irony is that delaying is exactly what you should do when you're worried about the program's long-term reliability, because you get more of it locked in before any cuts hit. David can't go back. He claimed at 67. His $1,960 is what it is. But Carol, 58 years old, still working, still earning, can build an 8-year bridge. She can delay claiming until 70. She can push her savings rate aggressively for the remaining years she's employed. She can run her retirement math with the 23% cut already baked in, so that if it happens, she's not surprised. She told her advisor, "Plan as if the cut is coming. If it doesn't, great. If it does, I'm not caught." That sentence, "plan as if the cut is coming," is the most practical thing I've heard anyone say about this in a long time. David Turner is on his porch right now. Probably. It's what he does on afternoons like this. Has coffee, watches the street, thinks about what he wants to do with the day. He worked 38 years for this. The quiet, the unhurried morning. He earned it, genuinely. And if nothing changes between now and 2033, his retirement stays fragile but manageable. He'll figure it out. But if the trust fund depletes on schedule and his $1,960 check becomes $1,509, his margin disappears. The credit card that covered the water heater gets harder to pay off. The IRA that was supposed to last 25 years gets spent down in 10. The retirement he built around 2 beams starts to lean, because one of them is shorter than the blueprint said it would be. He doesn't know this yet. That's the part that stays with me. Carol knows, and that's the only real difference between them right now. Not income, not discipline, not intelligence, just information and time. She has 8 years, and she's using them. David had 8 years too, back in 2025. He just didn't have the conversation that told him the beam was cracking. You're having that conversation now. The median retiree ends up with $87,000 not because they failed at anything dramatic. They made individually reasonable choices, over and over, that compounded into a collectively fragile outcome. The daily decision that didn't feel like a retirement decision. The pause that was supposed to be temporary. The cash out that felt like a windfall. The Social Security estimate that felt like a guarantee. Small choices repeated across decades, adding up to a number that doesn't hold. The distance between $87,000 and something that actually works isn't created by income. It's created by behavior, maintained consistently, over time, with clear eyes about what the system will and won't provide. All 3 of those things are still available to most people watching this. The only version of this that ends badly is knowing the beam is cracking and deciding not to do anything about it. Drop a comment with where you are right now. Just started, behind but moving, or on track. I read them. And if this video helped you see something you hadn't thought about before, that subscribe button is right there.